Mick, what's your last name again?
Lefort?
Lefort. Lafort. Is it
L-E.
capital? L-E. Capital F?
Nope.
Lefort.
Yep.
Not everyone gets 2 capital letters in their last name.
I know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our favorite part of the week. It's time to listen to Sounds of Health. I am not your host today. That is actually going to be my friend Mick Lefort, who's here today. He heard that we had a last-minute cancellation with our guests and said, hey, why don't I just come in and talk to you about yourself and your business? And I said, okay, sure. I don't want to miss an episode. So I'm really excited to have him. You guys might remember him if you listened to the episode with Nexus Property Management. Mick works for Nexus. He's here in Connecticut. And you can go back and listen to that episode and learn all about him and his colleague and what they do in property management. And I'm going to turn it over to him. But I do want to remind everyone that Hamden Fest is this weekend. It's on Saturday. We're going to be there all day live streaming. And so we're actually testing that out today on Facebook Live, trying to just get all of that done and learn more about what it takes to do that. If you are going to be anywhere near Hamden, we'll be in Town Center Park, and it's going to be a really great day. There's a half marathon that morning. There's a business expo under the tents. That's where you're going to find us. We'll have a table set up as Nutmeg Insurance Advisors, and we'll also be set up as Sounds of Health, and we'll be live streaming from the event and interviewing people all throughout the day. So if you're in the area of Hamden, Connecticut, please stop by and say hello. All right, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Mick and see where this conversation goes.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I think a big part of it as a loyal listener, every week we get to hear you really bring out the best in your guests, but we don't hear a lot about Nutmeg Insurance Advisors. So I thought this was a good opportunity to say, tell us more about what you do, how you got here. I hear you often, relating to your guests, but I like the idea of flipping it and hearing more about your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So
I'd like to begin. This is a question I ask people that I haven't seen in a while, just that early pleasantry, but with a little bit more depth. What is it that makes you happy these days?
These days. Right now, the things that are making me the happiest are the weather changing and getting nicer and the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah. I'm happy for you. I know we've talked before. I'm a Braves fan, and the injury bug is biting them early.
Well, it's a long season. My family and I just got back from a trip down to Baltimore, and we got to see 2 games. We got to see both wins, which was really nice. And that place is really a place that we kind of consider our home. Yep. So, that's what's making me happiest right now.
Gotcha. Very nice. Yeah, I think I want to get into this conversation and talk about values, and that was one of the things that hit me right away. And part of why I want to talk to you more is this, we get along right away because we both value baseball, but what I hear in your answer is your value of family. Right? This is something that your dad left to you that you now, impart with your sons. You're saying
for sure.
You picked your sons up right after school and shot down to Baltimore.
We did, yeah.
That beauty of sharing something like that is intergenerational. Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of leads me to where I want to go with this conversation and kind of framing it in that, how we talk about aging and, moving on in our parts, that evolution. So let me throw this at you. I think we mentioned before that I used to be a history teacher, and I think about aging, kind of throw out this historical theory of aging. And just to give a simple example, our grandparents' generation, before World War II, Depression age, pretty much there was one stage of life. You were born, and as soon as you could work, you worked. Yeah. And then as soon as you couldn't work, that was it. See you later.
Right.
Really simple, but kind of a sad way to think about life. And you look at today, and obviously life is much more complicated. And I look at it and see really, I think, 4 stages of life that I picture it through, and I hear when listening to your episodes. Your guests are at different stages, or they talk to different stages on this. So let me throw this at you and give me some feedback or pushback. The first stage is kind of like the first 20 years of your life. It's the training. It's you trying to figure some things out. It's high school. It's the beginning of college. It's that here's who I want to be based on the little things I know with my mostly developed brain.
Right, sure.
And then from 20 to 40, we put those things into practice. So really breaking everything into 20-year increments. From 20 to 40, we put that into practice.
Yeah.
We become the professionals that we are. We might start a family, and right around the end of that, around 40, getting into that third piece, that third stage, it's more of a, am I happy with where this is going? Now that my values are more well-defined and have risen to the top, now that I've got a fully functioned brain and I've played this game for a while, where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? And I think once upon a time that midlife crisis was, I'm buying a sports car.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
I think both you and I have in common that we started a new career right around that time. So
Right.
I'm interested to see what you think about that. So that's your 40 to 60, starting that next stage.
Yeah.
And then 60 to 80 and beyond is a theme that I've heard a bunch with your guests of how do we age healthily and wisely?
Yeah.
So breaking into those four stages, I want to put forth the question that you ask every week, and it is, tell us about your journey and how you got here.
Yeah.
And I'm challenging because you always do such a good job of making people feel comfortable. I want to make it a little less comfortable for you and say,
Okay.
can you kind of stick to that framework and walk us through what life looked like through that evolution for you? And one last caveat before throwing that out.
Okay.
You also have a unique expertise in what life looks like beyond your age because you work with insurance and Medicare with folks that are older than you. You also have a better idea of what the future looks like. So all that to put as much pressure on you as
Wow,
possible.
man, I knew I was nervous for a reason today. I woke up anxious, and now I can see why. Talk about being put on the spot and live on Facebook. No, I appreciate that. And honestly, that kind of framework that you just provided is something I think about a lot. I do think about, my grandparents' generation and kind of what life looked like for them and what they went through. My parents' generation and how things changed and adapted really at a great time for me and my generation because we got a childhood. We were kind of raised in a golden age, in my opinion. And I, benefited greatly from the fact that I was able to be a kid. And that probably extended for longer than it should have, actually. So, when you talk about those milestones and those chunks of years, I think for every person, it's unique and it's fluid. Maybe it's the first 30 years is your first chunk. Maybe you haven't figured anything out until then. I know I figured out very little. I'm still figuring it out, And then, as you mentioned, with what I do now, I do get a perspective on that older generation. I truly believe that life begins at 65 these days. I think, those are going to be the best years of your life. I remember back in like the 80s where there were like commercials on TV about, the golden years and how, life is great in retirement. But I think that's actually truer now. Mm-hmm. I think there's more opportunity. I think there's more resources for people to lengthen their lives, to live healthier for longer. And if they can put in the work, obviously everything takes work, right? Like nothing's handed to us. Mm-hmm. If they plan properly, if they put in the work, if they really dedicate themselves to living longer and living healthier, then we have a shot at it now, I also, I lost my dad at a young age. So he was 59 years old and I was 23. So that perspective of seeing, he worked all his life and he didn't even get to retirement and to enjoy that. And that's one of those things that's just unfair, So it put that in perspective for me. And my grandparents too, we had Alzheimer's in our family. My nanny was an incredible lady. And, in her 80s, I believe it was her 80s when she was diagnosed, she suffered greatly. She had Alzheimer's and she was in a home for a very long time. Her body was physically healthy and her mind just wasn't there any longer. So seeing that, I think those experiences kind of led me on the path that I'm on now. At least they informed what I was doing pretty much throughout my life. So I started out out of college as an actor. I actually had never really acted until college. Mm-hmm. It was something I always wanted to try, but I was too shy and didn't think I could really do it. But then I needed something to really be passionate about to get myself through college because I was kind of floundering. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was the type of person, I loved reading and I loved learning, but I didn't love structure, and I didn't love those classes where all you had to do to get an A was show up. I don't know why. I mean, those are usually the classes everybody loves, right? That just bothered me, So I didn't do well in that kind of structure. But once I, found acting, I did. And I was able to get my degree and go to New York and live that life and really pursue it. And that was great. And I love that. And I still do some of those things. But, at a certain point, I would settle down and got married. Family, like, as you mentioned, was really important to me. So I was really lucky when I was in New York as an actor to fall backwards kind of into a position at the Michael J. Fox Foundation in nonprofit. And it was really there where I learned that I had a lot more skills than I knew. And that was an amazing place that kind of opened my eyes to what's possible. And I was just really around many incredible people. And that helped me to see that there were more options out there, things that I really enjoyed, and things that kind of fit those values that I had been developing throughout my life. My wife and I, when we had kids, decided we wanted to come back to Connecticut. So we made that transition. I went to work at Yale University for a little while in development and fundraising. And then I was lucky again to get my dream job at the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp. And I did that for a few years. Again, that was another place where I was lucky to be a part of it. And I was lucky to meet all the people that came through those doors and the people that I worked with. And it was never easy, but it was always rewarding. And I was able to volunteer during the summers in the cabins with the kids. And that is a life-changing experience for anyone who has that opportunity. But I was having kids myself. And I got to that point where I was working nights and weekends, and it was a lot, and I was missing out on things that my kids were going to start experiencing. And that was really the priority for me, and that's what brought me into kind of that. I guess for me, it was my third stage of, going into a business where it gave me more flexibility, and that was Medicare sales. And initially I worked for a couple of the insurance companies here in Connecticut as a captive agent, and those were great opportunities as well. I was pretty much just on the road working with Medicare beneficiaries, learning the business, being trained properly and well, knowing how to do things the right way for the right reasons. And I did that for a few years and then realized I have this great opportunity to go and open up my own shop. And, I did that. I think you and I have talked about how when I did that, it was just a few months before COVID.
Yeah.
So, I walked away from all these benefits and things, and then COVID hit, and it was a scary, scary time. But luckily we were able to kind of get through all of that. And now I have, my dream business. I love what I do, Nutmeg Insurance Advisors, and helping people with health insurance, specifically Medicare still. I think those are the folks who need the most guidance. There's just so much need out there. So, yeah, I don't know if I've really answered a lot of that giant question you threw at me. But yeah.
No, it was great. It was a great answer. And to me, what I heard was really you were that perfect example. And I'm thinking of, we've got a birthday coming up. I've got a 19-year-old at home. 18, soon to be 19. And to me, what you just said is exactly what every parent wants to hear. It's that I figured it out between 20 and 40.
Yeah.
You it sounds like, you're a smart guy, you're a good student, but you knew what you liked. And then it was those years that were so formative.
Yeah.
Between your experiences that you had control over through the passing of your father when you're 23, like that all culminates. That 20 years is where it all came together. And you kept using the word lucky and luckily. And I think it's important that we are aware of, luck and privilege that exists out there.
Of course, yeah.
But you used a luckily in there that I want to disagree with. And it's the one when you started your business. I don't think you were lucky that you were able to get through that stuff. I think you were at a spot where you could make that confident choice with the expertise that you had fermented along the way.
Yeah.
So that it was, you had the skills and the path that got you there. Was there sure?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think the luck part was the people that I had around me that were able to support that journey.
Gotcha.
I was able to work with my good friends, Bill Giaquinto and Scott Burney, who own Nutmeg Advisory Group. And so that's where my office is. I rent office space from them. And they helped me get on my feet. And then also my good friend Tracy O'Brien, who had gone independent a couple of years before me, like she blazed that path and she showed me how to do it. So, that's where the luck factor came in. I mean, just lucky that I had those types of people in my life.
Yep, I like that.
Yeah.
And then to continue kind of with the analysis of your response, then it sounds like you got to that 40-year-old kind of that switch, and you said, I want to be around for my kids more. I want to see my kids play baseball. So you had that flexibility to say, these are my values that are most important. Here's what I want to do with them. And I think that's where we as a generation are or want to be. So I applaud you being able to have the confidence to make that transition. And I think, in this whole, this arena of health and mental health and financial health, like I think you hit it on the head in terms of making those choices that are best for you, your personal health, and also for your family and what you value. So I think that's a big part of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And it is. I mean, the one thing I was never afraid of doing is taking a chance. And there were multiple times where I kind of had an opportunity to go do something that maybe was a little bit less money, maybe wasn't, but it was a better fit for me at the time. And so I would take the chance and do it. And, opening up your own business, it keeps you up at night. It's something that it can give you a lot of anxiety and things like that. But especially when you have kids or other people in your life that depend on you, that's where it gets really interesting.
Sure.
But, being able to do that, it was a real blessing.
Yeah. Great. So let me ask you this, to dive in a bit more about, what you do with insurance.
Yeah.
Let me start selfishly and look at it. I'm in my 40s. Mm-hmm. I'm 20 years away from ever having to call Nutmeg Insurance Advisors, I think.
Yeah, maybe not.
So what, in that theme of being 40s and planning for 60s and beyond, right? Because that's really what this is all about, right? In each stage, you're planning for the next one. What do I want to know or need to know right now to prepare for, the best transition when I do get to that age?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that my insurance agency began, it was focused on Medicare, and it was specific because I had that expertise. I was trained in that business, and it was a really good way of establishing a book of business that would give me residual income and kind of allow me to set up a life for my family. So I stayed focused for the first few years in business. It was really just Medicare. Organically, I started to get into other lines of business and network with other people because I was out there in people's homes a lot, or they were coming into the office and they were asking me about Medicare and health insurance. But in those conversations, a lot more comes up and you can see, what they need assistance with or where the gaps are in their long-term plan. So then I would start to network with people who were experts in life insurance or long-term care or financial advisors like Bill and Scott. And so I started to have a network of people that I could refer to. My agency also, as I started to recruit agents and I started to make these connections, I realized that I also needed to expand into other lines of business. And that's to protect my family, protect our well-being. You can't have everything in one basket. Mm-hmm. So when I felt comfortable, I started to kind of expand. So I do employer health group plans. I help people with Access Health. I have people in my network that are really good at those things. I can do life insurance and long-term care and those types of plans. I work very closely with financial advisors so that when someone in their 40s who's asking these questions, they can call me. They can call Nutmeg Insurance Advisors, and we can set up a plan for them and answer those questions that they have. Because there is a lot to think about. And, now I'm still in my 40s, pushing 50, and I'm realizing that there were probably gaps in my plan as well. For so long, I think you're trying to just keep up with where life is taking you and maybe not thinking ahead properly. And so that's something that I've really learned and am trying to really position my family in the best way that I can and get to that point where, retirement is possible. Maybe I choose not to because I still want to work. Yep. But that it's not as much of I have to do it, And so I think your 40s or 30s even are the right time to start asking these questions. With all that I've learned in the past few years with life insurance, long-term care planning, the financial advising, all of those things, the sooner the better. And it's never too early to start. I wish that we were teaching more of these things in school. I think these are topics that should be in a curriculum that we should all know, because there's just, and that was really the impetus of starting the podcast. Jason and I haven't had a lot of guests that hit that financial wellness yet, but I really hope to bring more of those folks on, because I think that's crucial for people to be healthy long-term. You need to have that plan in place.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I think back to a lot of your earlier episodes, you ask your guests about balance, right? And it's really hard to have balance if you don't have that financial basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And, an illness or just an event that's unexpected, you get laid off, or God forbid, you get a diagnosis of something that's going to be really challenging. That impacts you financially immediately. And there are ways to protect that. And so that's why I do so much networking. So I have those experts, that can help.
Gotcha. And so realistically, your main focus, I guess, or at least your banner focus, is the Medicare. But you've got a lot, really you offer a more holistic, options for people.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, this year we launched a new website, so you can kind of see all of the different things that we do on the website. And then obviously with the podcast, you can hear the people that we have and that we're connected to. So, it's never wrong to give us a call. And if you have questions about, your planning and your future, if I don't have answers for you, or I can't help you with a specific product, then I know who can, and I'll be able to connect you with them as well.
All right. So that's great. So that's a great answer for me in my 40s. And by the time, if I give you a call, by the time I need to understand Medicare, we've got a trusting relationship.
Right.
We're good to go. It's all been primed. But what if it's my mom right now, who's just about 70 years old? She was a school teacher, expected a pension, got less of her pension than she expected, isn't thrilled with the government or these entities.
Right.
And I say, hey, I know this guy who can help you out with your Medicare. And she says, oh yeah, I've been helped out before.
Yeah.
Right. She doesn't have that 20 years of getting to know you and your services.
Right.
How does that play out? And I guess we'll use it as, how do I have that conversation with my mom? How do we start that conversation and get to a place where she's comfortable saying, all right, send in the stranger.
Yeah, that's great question as well. I really think it's just about having a conversation. It's not, a lot of times it's not even, you need assistance with your Medicare. It could just be you need assistance in general, and I have a resource available to you. Somebody that does this for a living. His services are free of charge, because that's the way that our business is structured. Our clients don't pay us any money. We get paid by the insurance companies when we do enroll people into plans. So for us, it's very easy to meet and talk and just have a simple conversation. If there are things that they're asking about, or they have pain points that they're expressing to you, that's a great thing to share with me, and I can tell you how I would answer it. I also think that there's a lot of people that do what I do out there. So if you have someone, every time I do a presentation or meet with a group of people, the message I want them to go away with is just find somebody that you trust, that has the expertise and the experience, and hopefully they're local and they're not an 800 number, because that gets really challenging too, especially as we age, and use them. And if it's me, great. I would love the business. There's enough business out there for all of us. So it's okay if it's not me, but as long as it's someone that you trust, someone that can help you to kind of turn off that noise that's out there. Because you haven't experienced this, but I'm sure your mom has. When you are approaching 65 or you're on Medicare, you're getting inundated with information.
Okay.
And so now all of those commercials that you probably are aware of, but you're not paying attention to, that have Joe Namath and all these guys, Captain Kirk, and talking about, these guys have no clue what they're talking about or what they're selling. And it's unfortunate, because the commercials are misleading. They're also being inundated with mail in their mailbox. So they're getting preyed upon in a lot of ways, just with information. There's a lot out there, and there are people in the industry that are looking for that quick sale. They want that income. What we do is long term. So if you're not happy with my services long term, then it's not really worth me having to get that immediate sale. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Mm-hmm. That's not doing it right. So I think it's never a pressure thing. It's like introducing me to somebody should never be, you need this guy. It's what, can you have a conversation with them? Yeah. Can, maybe we get together. I love when family members are involved. I think the more the merrier, because I know for me, I'm going through it with my mom. I can't be my mom's agent because she has retiree coverage. So, but I have to assist her a lot because there's not a whole lot of resources out there of people that are guiding her through that coverage. And so when there is a question about Medicare or a question, I'm the one who helps. And I have a number of people I do that for that aren't clients of mine. I don't get compensated in any way, but they need the assistance. Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy to help them because I'm able to kind of make a living on just doing that in the community and helping others. I don't need every encounter to be one that I'm compensated on.
Yeah. There's a lot you covered there, and it's great in terms of for that personal takeaway for me. It's like, yep, start that conversation because I haven't, mm-hmm. right? So it is as easy that first step, and I love that thought of the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to talk to Dave, I'll go with you. Let's go check. That's huge because mm-hmm. there is that comfort, that bridge toward that trusting person.
Yeah. Instead
of going to this room with this guy that I trust, it's like, hey, why don't we go? And I can see that paradox of, Joe Namath and whoever it is trying to, so that they are inundated by all this nonsense, which might make it harder for people to naturally trust you, but it also gives you that avenue to be like, oh, I'm the opposite of this.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can get through that,
yep,
there's a lot of value. It's just
absolutely
cutting through the noise.
Yeah, it's a interesting time. There's going to be a lot of changes out there that are coming people's way. There's a lot of noise that's out there. And there's a lot of people, trying to make a business of it. So it is a complex time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of scams out there now too. So that becomes a part of what I do as well, is just helping people with that, making sure that they understand, don't click every link that's sent to you. And, we have resources for that as well to protect them.
Yep. That's great. That's so I've known you for a while. We've talked a bit, and I learned a bunch today. So I'm thinking the goal here was for the audience to learn a bunch about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing that.
So that's great. So before we finish up, I want to ask you guys a bit more. I know Jason's here as well. Just the podcast you mentioned earlier. It is kind of this avenue for more outreach. In preparing for this conversation with you, kind of stepping into your shoes, I did want to touch on values. And to me, when I look at, we talked about family. To me, one that's big for you, obviously, is the health. As the umbrella for this.
Yeah.
But I see in you as also a mentorship. I see that as something that's big to you. And that's kind of I'm not just telling you, but I'm showing you. And I think that came out in this conversation. And again, just to tease back into the podcast piece that fills a lot of that. You're 18, now 19 episodes in.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel it's going? What are you most satisfied with? What are some things that you're looking, you mentioned kind of trying to get the more financial health, but if you were to kind of have the big board meeting with the two of you at this point, say, where do we want to go from here? What are we really happy with? If you don't mind kind of sharing some of that publicly.
Of course.
I think, your honesty and transparency is a big part of why people, trust you so much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so the idea of the podcast really came to me just because I listen to so many podcasts and I really enjoy them. I think I started to do that during COVID, and I didn't know exactly how to launch my own. I know it's the barrier's pretty low as far as getting started, right, Jay?
Yeah.
But it was really Jason and I reconnecting that lit the fire under me to say, okay, you know what? Let's invest a little bit in this. And let's get it up and running. And the easiest thing is to connect it to the agency and to the business that I do. And so I was thinking, what's what's the best idea for what's the format, what are the topics, what's the name, all of those things. Jason was able to come in and really give me his expertise in all of the technical side of things. He keeps pushing me to do things like the Facebook Live and stream live for an entire day on Saturday. That's really all him.
It's interesting because we're such a visual learning group of people. Most people on the internet, I should say, they learn visually. That's why a lot of social media is changing to TikTok and Instagram with visual reels and more content that is not only easy to digest in vertical mode, but also is interactive.
Yeah.
So Saturday we're going to be doing an event over at Hamden Fest. It's going to be a good long, almost 6 hours of
long time.
Just streaming guests coming to our table. It's going to be a test of ourselves as hosts and me as a technical person, but at the same time, it's going to be a good amount of exposure for not only Nutmeg but Sounds of Health. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. And so, as far as like getting the podcast launched, like the reasons were all of the things that I was doing as a business owner. I joined the chamber right when I started my business. I joined the RBNI networking group. And what I realized is I love learning about people's journeys. I love hearing the stories and how they got to where they are. I think those types of stories are what I want to share most of, because I want people to realize there's opportunities out there. There's options. Like, you're not stuck in one path. I mean, if I look back on my life, I started in college as an English major. My parents kept telling me to become a teacher. I didn't want to be a teacher. And the reason I didn't want to be a teacher was mostly because of the just working in a school system, not working with the kids. I loved working with the kids. But doing that and finding my way, it's like I just kind of stumbled into all of these different things. And so if you're really thinking about what do I want to do? How do I want to design my life? There are so many people to talk to and learn from. And that's kind of what the podcast is all about. And then focusing on how you can get healthier. I think that's so important. And in whatever stage of life that you're in, what are those habits that you can develop? What are those strategies that you can have to feel good, to stay healthy, to protect your life financially, all of those things. And the third reason of doing it was because, like I mentioned before, you can't just have one income stream, right? So my goal really for the podcast is to get to the point where we have a large audience and we can, sell ads and monetize it. Like, that is a goal of it as well. I really have the hope, and we haven't done any of that. Our growth so far has been all organic.
100% organic.
Yeah. So, and it's been great. We've had such great feedback on it. People have really enjoyed it. I've loved every Wednesday talking to somebody. Yeah. I love having the conversations. So I guess our goal going forward is get more people, get more people involved, grow the audience base, shine a light on more things that are out there for people. And I've also been toying with changing the format, like doing something like today was awesome. But I have, experts in all of these different areas, like especially with Medicare. And so I was talking to my friend Tracy the other day about, you should do once a month, do a topic, maybe share an actual case study or things like that. Mm-hmm. So we're going to kind of keep challenging ourselves to change and adapt and grow. I'd love to hear more from the people that are out there that are listening to it. I'd love them to email us or to, contact us on social media, give us more feedback, help share it, and grow the audience. I think we're just getting started.
Mm-hmm. I know for me, joining Dave in his journey with Nutmeg, coming aboard to be an agent with him, the podcast is something that I can bring some of my expertise and knowledge in. As I went to school for communication, and one of the central things that I need in my life is being able to either to tell a story in some way. Whether it's acting, because I have an acting background like Dave, or it's creating film, television, or doing podcasting and social media. So if this is part of me coming in and making it my own. And the good thing is that we can share in that journey, through Nutmeg, and grow. So I see this podcast becoming more of than just showcasing all of the health and wellness in the relationships that we've built. I mean, I would not be surprised if we have a couple of branched off little podcasts down the road. Dave loves comic books. We'll probably end up doing a comic book episode of podcasting at one point.
That's probably true.
I love movies. We're going to probably chat about movies. We were chatting about movies before we went live today. But that's what I see. I mean, eventually, as we grow, as we build following, as we share the sounds, we're going to be sharing more of ourselves and things like that are actually more creative as well. So,
yeah, it's great. You're building a platform. And
We're trying. Yeah,
and more people are going to come back to it, and it's I applaud it. I remember when you said, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing a podcast." That's awesome.
yeah,
It's great, and you guys. Jason, you just said the perfect word that's really been, floating through everything here, but we haven't really, teased it out, but it's the relationships.
Yeah.
For you guys to have met back up and bring this through, throughout the journey that you talked about, it's these strong relationships. And then you sit down with somebody for a half hour, an hour, and there we can all hear it and sometimes see it. It's the creation of this relationship. So you're in a trust industry, the podcast work. I know you've mentioned that you're a big podcaster. The ones that people seem to like are the ones that you feel like, oh, I trust that person. I could be sitting down there with them as well. Like,
right.
You guys are creating that, and it's 19 episodes in, so it's like 5 months.
Yeah. February
1st was our first episode.
Wild,
yeah. And I was challenged to do that. I had, in my networking, I had met with somebody who had a podcast. I talked to her about how I wanted to launch one, and she said, then do it. Set a date and make sure you do. And I did. And thank God for Jason, because he's the one who got it done.
We've been doing weekly podcasts. That's wild.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say though, like Dave you do a great job with the podcast of knowing how to tell the story and knowing what questions to ask. And that's a tough thing for podcast hosts, and to keep it, moving toward that progression. So listening back, 'cause I listened back to all the episodes frequently, and like I'm still listening in. There's not a time where the conversation dips or goes low, and we're getting into a flow of it. So I'm actually looking forward as our next few podcasts as we go, and the many guests we're going to have on Saturday, how it's going to go.
It's a different skill set. I'm learning every time, and I hate listening to myself, to be honest. But I force myself to do it.
Yep.
I force myself to listen to every episode, mostly because I'm trying to find ways to be better. I want to get better at it. And I genuinely love talking to people and learning about their stories. So I think that part is easy for me. Like that, knowing, how, and I am a storyteller, I have a background obviously as an actor, a writer, director. I'm a visual storyteller. This audio format is just a whole lot of fun.
Yep, and it just fits that other theme of just it's lifelong learning.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
That's the tie between all of those stages that we, learning. You are, learning a new craft, being creative with the craft that you know. And I think of the most recent episode. She was all about lifelong learning, and it was just,
absolutely,
that comes through. So that's another attraction to this platform that I can see you guys really just continuing to grow and bring to light.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you supporting us. You've been one of the people that reaches out to me and gives me feedback on the episodes, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
my
a lot of good listeners coming in from Nexus as well, Nexus Property Management. So yeah, thank you.
Yep, yeah. Our pleasure. It's great, and it's great to to be able to jump into this and to be able to talk to you guys for our business in that other episode.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see where this all goes.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Do we want to talk a little bit more about Saturday, Hamden Fest?
Yeah, so just to kind of remind everybody, we talked about it at the top of the show, but Sounds of Health will be live streaming from Hamden Fest on Saturday from Town Center Park in Hamden, Connecticut. It's one of the biggest events that the Hamden Regional Chamber of Commerce puts on, and we've been there as Nutmeg Insurance Advisors for the past few years. Really just a great day. There's food trucks, there's family events, there's a half marathon in the morning, There's the Business Expo, which is where they're going to find us under the tent. So if you have something that you'd like to talk to us about, come over and say hi. It won't be hard to find us at all. And maybe we'll put you on the mic and ask you a few questions. It's just going to be a really beautiful day. Hopefully the weather holds out.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we're good to wrap up. You have anything you want to do as the host to close?
I got nothing. I wanted to make sure that we'd set up the Hamden Fest thing, but you guys have touched on that. And
what's happening with Nexus? Anything happening anytime down the road here with Nexus? Any events?
No events. We're just busy. It's busy in the best of ways. The spring has brought out the flowers and the leaves and the renters and the maintenance needs. So yeah, we're clicking on all cylinders. We had opened here in Connecticut in August, and it's ramping up. So we're happy with it, almost to the point of like, let's not do it. Let's stay right where we are. This is the right amount of growth right now.
Yeah,
nice.
Gotcha.
Because when you mentioned Hamden Fest, and I listened to that that episode, I was like, ooh, that I'm like, not.
Right.
It is that opposite. Like, I've heard you say before, and a lot of very smart people work on your business instead of in your business.
Yeah.
Right now, we're fully in the business, so we're gonna live there and hop on out when the time comes.
That's exciting. Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing. We have 6 agents with Nutmeg Insurance Advisors now, so working on training and getting them out there and getting the business. It's hard to remove yourself and really think big picture, but you have to find that time as well.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mick, thank you so much for doing this. This was all your idea, so I appreciate it. A lot of firsts for us, and as we continue, definitely want to maintain this relationship. Would love to have you back on the podcast, talk more about Nexus when you're ready to. And I want to thank everybody who's out there listening. I don't know how many people are watching on Facebook Live, but
we've had quite a bit of people.
Really?
Yeah,
okay, great.
Comments as well. So,
well, listen, we
commenting.
appreciate your time and continuing to listen to the shows and to share the sounds of health. Please go back if you haven't and listen to some of our previous episodes. We've had some really amazing guests, and we're hoping to have more. So if you know anyone who you think would be a good guest for our show, please reach out to us. You can reach out to us through any of the social media channels or our email, which is soundsofhealth. I always forget this.
Podcast.
soundsofhealthpodcast@gmail.com. Our website is soundsofhealthpod.com, right? There you go. So yeah, email us, let us know. Happy to have a conversation and to keep all of this going. And we appreciate your support. Sounds of Health is brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors and recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. The podcast is produced by Jason Carubia and Dave MacNiven with music by Rob Hames. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate it when you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you know someone who you think should be a guest on the show, please email us at soundsofhealthpodcast@gmail.com. Each week, we spotlight the stories, people, and resources that inspire and motivate others to improve their health, and we are just getting started. Help us to share these sounds, and don't keep us a secret.